knew certainly that the Renfrew Ferries were going to be taken off within 3 years. This is 1981 in the summer, although I didn't know what they were going to be replaced with at that point. So knowing it was imminent, I definitely decided at that point I think I'd like to capture this on cine film, Super 8 film with sound, which was the kind of best that most people could get for that kind of thing. I was mainly interested in trains because I was fascinated with them as a kid, and there's a lot of lines in Renfrew and over the river at Yoker that had closed as well, so I was interested in exploring these as a kid. Although the lines had already closed, there was still a lot of interest to be seeing old stations, tunnels, artefacts, signals. So at that point I decided, yeah, I'm going to try and capture this in the best lighting conditions I can get, and the Renfrew Ferry while I'm here. So they were interlinked. It was decided certain lines, including the line out to Houston, Bridge of Weir and Kilmacolm when the line terminated, that was going to become the first casualty in 1983 since the end of the 60s. So I decided I'll make a little reel of film of that as well, with sound, try and capture the last day of the trains. Initially I started doing this 2 years ago with the stills photos of the older railways that had closed, and again there's large sections of these 40 years later that you'd never know there was a railway there at all. They've been made into roads, cycle paths, which is a good thing, but some have unfortunately been built over with new housing developments, factories overgrown with trees. And these got a lot of response actually online. People fascinated because they still live around these areas, and some of the younger generation never even were aware that that was a railway that was over that bridge. So maybe just see this grassy bank and then fascinated to see that there were actually stations there and tracks and trains before them. You would run the film through, you had to send it in an envelope for processing, but that was part of the fun, that you would then anticipate this film coming back in an envelope through your letterbox a few days later, and then the excitement of setting up your projector in a darkened room with your friends and family and let's have a look at this. And it was always a joy to see this stuff for the first time. Sometimes there were disappointments, shots underexposed or shaken, or you didn't capture exactly what you wanted. So I developed my own thing of just having editing in camera. So what I would do is just look through the viewfinder at every shot, and I would try to imagine an audience looking at that and deciding, right, when would they like to see the shot begin, when might they like to see it end. I just constantly think that way about it, so that meant that I had very little editing to do. There was a shot of the Waverley that made an unexpected appearance, a very nice, pleasant appearance, but because I didn't know it was actually coming, I shot it at a funny point in the film which didn't really fit with the editing. So something like that you could physically cut the film later on an editor in your house and then place it where you think it would look nice coming into shot. Again, it was all part of the fun to do that. Focusing was usually manual, done at the front here, and just like many cameras nowadays, you'd have a zoom lens, 7x zoom lens, and it was powered as well, this one. You can make the picture wide, telly, and you can make it go faster or slower. The exposure is automatic, but you could override that as well in this camera. You would have a button here for whether it was daylight or tungsten light, and then once the button was half pulled in, it would tell you if everything was right, and then all you had to do is pull it in and it would film your shot. In those days, 40 years ago, you would use a film cartridge. So that would hold about 3 minutes of film. It's not a lot, but it's enough to capture quite a lot of stuff still, if you were careful how you used it. So what you would do, you would first open this up. You always had a door on the side. Now with a sound cartridge, it had two bits to how this operated. First you would have an aperture for the light, obviously picture coming through the lens, it went through the gate, with the gate as you called it, with a kind of jerking motion, but when it went past the sound head, which is down here like in an old tape recorder, it had to pass it smoothly to capture the sound properly. So cartridges had two bits. You'd have a bit at the front to capture the pictures where it would be jerked through one by one, and then the sound film would pass along the bottom there smoothly. It was very easy to load up though. Just once you took it out of the packet, just put it in, push it through, and that was it. You were ready to go. A lot of people had movie cameras that just took silent film. They was very popular at the time, but there was a small percentage of sound cameras in the market. And I'd used silent cameras in the 70s, just playing about with kids and stuff, just going to the park, playing football, getting stuff like that. But once I entered my 20s, I thought it'd be nice to have a sound camera, because if things are disappearing, it'd be nice to actually capture the whole thing. It's more immersive if you can actually hear the character of things. The ferries, although reasonably silent, they were actually guided by chains from one side of the river to the other, and just with the mechanism of the boat, it was almost like they were chewing at the chains as they were moving across the water. So it's a very quirky and very pleasing, relaxing, calming sound to actually hear things like that. And then you also, when the ferries got to one side of the river, they had these safety gates, they quite sort of unceremoniously clattered open, and bang, and then clattering shut again. So I think things like that, people will be very interested in being reminded of things like that they may have forgotten about. It was a long time ago now, 40 years. I mean, a lot of this stuff at the time I captured it, documented it, but it's not really been seen because it was shot in celluloid film. They were seen by very few people, really just friends and family, and then never seen again. So the films were in perfect condition, fortunately, so I decided, well, these would be very interesting to show to other people now, because you see online you've got lots of old Glasgow sites, lost Glasgow, disused railways, so it's much more nowadays. People are interested in seeing these things, part of their history.